resume with our methods of research in our 9699 Cambridge Advanced Level Sociology. In the past lessons, we looked into the types of data, methods, and also research design. We explored the differences between primary and secondary sources of data, quantitative and qualitative, the strengths and limitations of different secondary sources of data, the strengths and limitations of different quantitative research methods, So this time around we are continuing with our next topic, which is on the strengths and limitations of different qualitative research methods. So we are still on qualitative research methods. I think by now we all know the difference between quantitative and qualitative. So last time I think we touched on the semi-structured, the unstructured, and semi-structured interviews. So we are starting with group interviews and try to round up with overt and covert participant and also non-participant observation. Thank you very much. Right. So we would like to start with the group interviews. Would like to start with the group interviews. What are group interviews? They involve respondents gathering to discuss a topic discussed in advance or decided in advance by the researcher, and these groups may be selected as representative samples, a cross-section of society, or for example, or they may simply represent a group that the researcher wanted to explore in detail. So you find out that they are what we call representative samples. When you talk of representative samples, let me explain. Let's say we have a problem of unemployment in a certain area. You can hear that there are the 67% or 80% of people are unemployed in this area. So that's quite a significant number. So for you to know much about that employment and how it's caused, you get what we call a representative sample group. You just get 5 people. Maybe that 70% was constitutes maybe 82,277 people who are facing that crisis. So instead of questioning them, you just look for 3 or 5. That's why they are called the representative sample. They can help you accordingly. So they are what they also call focus groups. Let's say you want to research about prostitutes. You are no longer choosing any random person. You therefore look for the sex workers. Then you can question them. So focus groups are often same-sex and from similar backgrounds to prevent gender and class variables affecting the reliability and validity of the data. So the success of group interviews depend on number 1, an interview structure with clear guidelines for the participants to avoid arguments within the group. So the questions must be framed in a way that the respondents shouldn't argue. Sometimes people argue because the question might be confusing. So whenever you're questioning a certain group, they have to answer in unison. The 5 of them or the 4 of them must answer in unison. So there must be advanced or predetermined questions through which the experiences of participants can be explored. When we talk of predetermined questions, we are simply meaning that, let's say you are going to research about robbers. You want to research about gangs. You want to research about sex workers. You want to research about nurses in a certain area. You must have what we call like advanced or predetermined questions, like which are in line with what? With the people you deal with. So interaction within the group, which gives unique insights into people's shared understanding of everyday life. You must also have sort of an interaction too. Like before you even engage, before you even question, you must also understand the type of life these people live. Are you getting the sense? Yes. So the skill of the researcher who must, for example, try to ensure that the discussion is not dominated by 1 or 2 individuals. Are you getting the sense? Yes. So you must be pause. So I was explaining about the skill of the researcher who must, for example, try to ensure that the discussion is not dominated by one or two individuals. So he must come up with the choicest people, the best, who can have the same voice. Because if you were to choose 5 people, of the 5, maybe 2 are the brightest. And they might be the most vocal. Right? And they might participate better than the others. They might have the answers. So the onus or the burden is on the shoulders of the researcher to ensure that the 5 people that I've chosen have, let's say, the same level of IQ, like they have the same level of thinking, so that at least they can come up with the one decision. Verify that. Are you getting the sense? Yes, we used to do that whenever you used to do like group work at school. You find out that in a group of 10 people, maybe 5 or 6 are not even interested in whatever you're doing. Maybe 2 are only interested. So what are the strengths of this? In group interviews, the researcher can help the discussion. They can, number 1, control the pace and the scope of the discussion. They can control the what? The pace or the what? The pace or the what? The what? The scope. So when you talk of the pace, we are talking about how the interview is moving, right? Then when you talk of the scope, we are talking about the idea or the brain behind the interview. So as the researcher, you are the one who controls these 2 aspects. Then the other thing is plan a schedule, or what do they say? They say schedule. As if you want to know if someone knows English, how they, when I was from grade 4, they had to mark schedule. Schedule, I don't know. So they must plan a schedule that allows them to focus and refocus the discussion, and they can ask questions, stop or change the focus of discussions too, and create a situation that reflects how people naturally share and discuss ideas, because they have used the word naturally here. Chloe, what can you say about the word naturally in this regard? Let's say we're dealing with a group interview, and you want the people to naturally share.
They're comfortable to
Exactly. They can be natural. I think I once told you that. When I'm here, okay, especially when I'm teaching, right, I'm very natural. But there's some instances which I can fake. It depends on the situation. I cannot be myself. There are situations like that. So there are also scenarios like that whereby an interviewer must create an environment in which those who are replying should be free and natural. They must not fake whatever they're saying, So there are limitations accordingly. The researcher must control the behavior of the group to allow people to speak freely and openly about an issue while maintaining the focus of the research, which can require considerable skill. Because whenever you are asking people some complex or delicate information about their lives, they might even stray. And sometimes people might be taken by the heat of the moment, or they might be excited. They might be excited to an extent that they might give you answers which are not really in line with their topic which you are discussing, because they are humans at the end of the day. So as the panelist, as the interviewer, as the researcher, you must be intelligent or crafty enough to ensure that you control the discussion accordingly. So there may also be problems with the representativeness. If in a carefully selected groups of 10, one person does not show up, the sample becomes unrepresentative. That's what I'm saying. Like if it's a group of 10 people, then we have 8 people being present for the thing, or we have 9 people being present for it. It might not represent the full picture. Like I said, some of them might just be statues when they come there. They won't say anything. Like we have 10 people and you find out that only 4 might be serious. This will not give us a good picture. Right. So group interviews are also at risk from another type of what we call an interview effect, which has been called groupthink. This refers to the pressure people feel to arrive at desired outcomes, such as what they believe the researcher or the rest of the group wants to hear. And group interviews also run the risk of simply reflecting a group consensus rather than revealing what individuals really believe. And individuals may not want to say what they really think if they feel that they are on their own. That's another explanation. Because there is what we call mweya wemubhazi or mweya wemurori. Wekuti nekuti muri murori, pakatanga kutoimbwa munotoimbwa mese muri 50 muri. But ukanatsodzika kudai zvaiita kupinda mumwe you find out that from the 50 people, only 10 people want to sing. Urubata zvandota. Paunhu 50 vanhu 10 chete ndovada kuimba. But vamwe vazodairira because vanichi pane zimwe yarenzi munozokuta wanzi. Sometimes when you are having a group interview, vamwe vanozomudairira zvimwe zvinhu nekuti vanenge vanoti vamwe 9 madairira ukongoti ariganingo. But at the end of the day, the person will be like, that's rubbish. I want to say, I needed to say my things, But because of whatever Bitcoin numbers, they can't really do that. Right. So we have the observation. That's another method. We have the observation. Right. So observational methods are based on the idea that data are more valid if they are gathered by seeing how people behave. So the word observation is from the word observe. So when you talk of observing, it's whereby people gather data by seeing, right? Being on the ground and seeing with their naked eyes, they'll be seeing how people behave rather than taking on trust that people do what they say they do. So there are two main observational techniques. We have the non-participant and what? And participant. Right. So I'd like to start with the participant. I think that's, before we move on to the next one, I think we'll round it up on Wednesday, because that's quite a bit. Those are the nitty-gritties, those are the most important parts of this of this topic in as much as the syllabus is concerned. So we don't have to stash them in, they might confuse you. So when talk of participant observation, it is when the researcher takes part in the behavior being studied. I was once told a story by my advanced level teacher that there was a person, he was a sociologist or historian or something, that he wanted to research about sex workers in America. Then he ended up forgetting that he was researching. Like, zvakangotanga sefun. Because it was sort of a research. I didn't to understand how they lived. How to vanhu vaitiwa kuinvesti kwanga ndo vakazotoya handikaiti kuona America sevangoingidza. That was around 2012. Like when people want to get involved and observe and they end up participating in the actual act, So Max Weber called it the Verstehen. Verstehen means to understand by experiencing. As mid-1934 described it, the researcher's ability to take part of the others and see things from their viewpoint, and that's where we apply the issue of empathy, right? But sometimes for you to understand things, you have to be on the ground. Yes. What am I saying? You want to research about how meals are structured for certain families. Vakakudza kuti susu tongodya mapotato, like kunorwa chinonzi chibrunch. It's a combination of breakfast and lunch. Chinorwa zvekumalevhi, which means panogona mapotatoes nechingwa, right? Vari kukudza information, then manheru tozongoti sadza nemavheji zvavarana. So they eat 2 times, So sometimes for you to understand it, you have to empathize with them. You might live with them. You might eat with them at that brunch. Then you might also eat with them in the evening. That's sort of the understanding. So you must in being involved. So participant observation can take 2 forms: overt and covert. Right? What is overt participant observation? What is overt participant observation? When you talk of overt participants, overt, I don't know how you can pronounce it. Overt or overt participant observation. It involves participating in the behavior of people who know they are being studied. The researcher joins the groups openly and usually conducts the research with the permission and cooperation of the group. Like when I saw someone who was researching about the gangs in South Africa. It means like when he was in that house where they lived, when they were smoking their drugs, when they were taking their drugs, when they were just showing up their guns. This means that these gangsters gave him the what? The room, or they gave him the permission to research about them. That's what we call an overt participant. It means the people who are supposed to be studied give you the room, right, to research, or they give you in simple English the permission to research about them. So why is it strong? On a practical level, recording data is relatively easy because the group knows and understands the role of the researcher, right? So there will be sort of a relationship that you would have built. So they understand that you are the researcher and you have come to do ABC. So they begin to respect you accordingly. So the researcher can ask you questions, take notes, and observe behavior openly. With the groups that have hierarchical structures, such as large businesses, the researcher can gain access to all levels, the boardroom as well as the shop floor. Why? Because they've given not the room. Let's say you want to research about the Zimbabwe prison services. They give you the room to get into the bathrooms. You can get to their kitchen areas. You can get to their playing areas. You can get to the offices of the commander-in-chief, of the officer in charge. You get that privilege. Why? Because they know that that's what you are looking for here. You want to know about this organization. Yes, let's say you want someone to research about the tutorial home here. They can get into the classes, they can get into the offices. We know that that's what they are looking for. So it can be difficult to get access to some groups. Some researchers may use sponsorship to find a way in. This involves gaining the trust and cooperation of an important group member. Venkatesh in 2009, he said study of a black American gang, for example, was only possible because a gang leader called JT sponsored and protected Venkatesh while we observed the gang and eventually gained access to some of its more powerful members. And sponsorships makes it easier to separate the roles of participant and observers. So this means that when the issue of JT, it means the JT himself is the gang leader. We had a research, and he was also supposed to be To be protected. I was in South Africa. There are monies that they call protection fees. If you want to open a saloon, a barber, or a tuck shop, there are some goons you are supposed to pay so that you can operate in that area. So that they can protect you against the police, they can protect you against the city council, they can protect you against the municipality, they can also protect you against fellow robbers. Because there might be some house breakers or some shop breakers from somewhere. Yes. They can have access into your area. Why? Because you didn't pay the owners of the area. Yes, something like that. So the ability to ask questions, observe individual behaviors, and experience the day-to-day life of respondents helps researchers to build up a highly detailed picture of the lives they are describing. And this means that the researcher not only gets to understand what people say they do, but also witnesses and experiences what people actually do. So where the observer's role is clearly defined. When we say the observer's role is clearly defined, the people who are supposed to interview, when they know that this person's role is ABC, then at least there's no hiding. They might be free to share, So there's also less risk of involvement in unethical, criminal, dangerous, or destructive behaviors. So the researcher can, for example, pull back from risky situations without necessarily losing the trust or causing the suspicions of those being studied. Why? Because they already know that this person is a sociologist, is a psychologist who has just visited us to research about, maybe he wants to write a dissertation, or they want to write something about what these people will be doing in a certain area, So, however, there are limitations. I think we have to end here because of the time and because of your understanding. So, if a group refuses the researcher's permission to observe you, then the research cannot be carried out. You know that? Yes. So, if the gangs tell you that we are not comfortable for you to come and ask us questions, you won't get any information. And in addition, overt observation requires substantial amounts of time, effort, and what? And money. You want to research about sex workers, you want to research about robbers or gangs in a certain area. This means that you have to leave your home base, then you come to live into that area. Sometimes you might even have to rent in the CBD or in the town, so that, and you have to rent not only accommodation, but also the car, right? Yes, you also have to rent a car. You also need to have the food. You also need to have your cameras in place. You also need to charge your phone. All these things that I've just mentioned needs money, so it's financially or monetarily demanding. Yes. Yes.
You said that if the participants refuse to be experimented on, but what if the researcher experiments anyway? Is there illegal?
That's why we said there is what? Overt. So next lesson we'll be looking at what? Covert. The researcher will be working undercover. They know that this person or these people won't give us the information that we want, so they can act undercover. They might discuss themselves so that they can extract the information. When you talk of overt, that the one that we are looking into with strength and limitations, we are simply trying to say that the researcher has to be open to the people, tell them that I'm a researcher and I want to research ABC about you. Right. So, Venkatesh, for example, spent around 8 years on his study of a single gang in a small area of one US city. Look at how difficult it is. Let's say this gang is about 200 members, but it was risky. He had to spend about 8 years so that he can come up with a documentary about those people. So theoretical criticisms focus on the observer, hold on effect, and the extent to which knowledge of being watched changes how people behave. I think I once mentioned about it a long time ago. When someone is being observed, they might even change their character. They might even change how they are answered. They answer, we call it what? The Horton effect. I think I once explained about this Horton effect. It's the Horton industrial effect. Like they ensured that these people were working in a factory, in an industry. Then they improved the working conditions, good lighting, good protective uniform, and they watched over them. And they also found good progress. Why? Because these people knew that they were being watched and there were some improvements that were made. So if you remove that improvement, just leave the people like that without even observing them, you get poor results. So that's sort of the hold-on effect. When the people are watched, when their situation is improved, when they are also made aware of what is happening around them, they can come up with a certain work ethic in trying to please, Yes. So while people may be studied in their natural environment, an awareness of the presence of the researcher may make them behave unnaturally. Yes. And for example, Venkatesh witnessed a fake punishment beating designed to demonstrate the limits of his observational role. Higher level gang members were putting on a show for his benefit. So what is a further limitation is the researcher's level of involvement. Like without full participation, the researcher's involvement may be too superficial to allow a true understanding of behavior. And there are also ethical concerns, like such as not participating in illegal behavior may affect the extent to which the researcher is truly experiencing how people normally behave. But I find this point funny. Let's say gangs are going to kill a person, then you want to join them in that killing so that you can get information. It's crazy, So that's the criticism. Sometimes they are saying that for you as the researcher to understand this, you must be practically and directly involved, of which it's not really viable. So there's a risk that the researcher will become too involved and effectively become the story they are reporting. I think I once the story that I told you that I was told by my history teacher. Now this person was researching about sex workers, I think in Chicago or in America. Then he ended up living with one of the sex workers. And he ended up forgetting his job. And they ended up becoming part of the story. So their presence becomes the focal point around which people adapt their behavior. So Venkatesh was given the special treatment. He was invited to meetings and was introduced to people he would not have met if he had not been known as a researcher sponsored by what? by a gang leader. It is because a gang leader who is respected was the one who paid for him to research. That's why he was given a leeway. That's why he was given a room for him to what? To enter into any even restricted areas. So overt participant observation is impossible to replicate. You cannot do it again and get the same result. Others must trust that the researchers saw and experienced the behavior they document. In addition, another shortfall or another weakness or another disadvantage is the fact that it can be difficult for researchers to accurately record behavior while they are in the middle of it. Yes, you might be in the middle of something. For you to come up with the correct information, it might be problematic. And no researcher can record and document everything that happens, which means that this method will always involve the selection, interpretation, and retelling of ideas and also events. Right. So next lesson, we are starting on covert participant, and I think in covert participant observation, the researcher secretly. Overt, it's open, then covert is what? It's secret. Yes. Now we see.